It may very well be the case that I will not have an opportunity for my neighbor to stop using his water pipe. So if you hear that, then you hear it. That's we'll just deal with it, I suppose. I am Dashen Grizzly, or I'm Dashen Grizzly. It doesn't really matter which accent you use. That's Scottish. It's my favorite. You'll be hearing a lot of it. I switch back and forth on a moment's notice. Something I have noticed is anytime somebody says, hello to me. I live in North Carolina, so they got that southern drawl. Hi, how are you? I'm doing very well. How are you? And they'll always chuckle. Like if I do this every day, and I do, anytime anybody says hello to me, I automatically just turn on the Scottish. There's nothing I can do about it. It's automatic, and people. So, nobody's ever questioned me about it. They just accept it, and I've always wondered what goes through their mind. But you'll be hearing a lot of that. I am Dashen Grizzly, and I've always wanted to do a podcast. I have talked to people about doing a podcast. I have talked to friends and told them we should have a conversation because we go deep. Very Joe Rogan Experience style. We have these conversations where we pontificate on the meaning of the universe, our lives, everybody else's lives, how we experience things, how we imagine other people experience things. And then I realized I can't depend on other people for me to do that. And I can very easily do that on my own. Bill Burr does. He has an on button, and once you get him going, you better let him go. We'll also talk about music. That is an Ani DeFranco line. She is a singer-songwriter. You'll probably hear lots of quotations by her. Very good stuff. In light of the fact that I am doing a podcast, in light of the fact that I'm aware that viewership is going to be extremely limited, I am taking a cue from a new friend of mine. A new friend of mine who has been doing vlogs for many, many years and gets very few views. A criminally undersubscribed channel. Perhaps 20 views, tops, on her vlogs consistently. She still talks to you like you're there. She still talks to you like you're friends. She still asks questions that nobody answers in the comments. However, you see these consistent views. She's got maybe 40 subscribers. Jen's Lens, a very good channel. Very good. And what you'll notice is this is not something that she does for other people. This is something that she did for herself. It's a promise. And when you make do to your promises, especially to yourself, you reap rewards that are far more valuable than any views. So I've promised myself to do a podcast. I've promised myself that I will be consistent with it. I've promised myself that I don't need to overthink things to the point where I don't have a subject. Or rather, I hyper-focus on a subject for a video. I can turn the on button on. I can go. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to, ruin the world for me. I'm not going to dig my own grave by talking. I may, be jinxing myself there, but whatever the case may be, I have no problem recognizing that viewership will be limited, and that's okay. That's completely fine. Most of the things I do in my life concerning being on the internet have very little to do with what other people feel about that work. I'd like to be part of communities where we celebrate each other's work. I help run an online music competition called The Standard, and it is a community that's been created by Frenchie. And Frenchie is a great guy. Great guy, knows exactly what his niche is. He's figured out a way to be a leader. He's figured out a way to have this community come together and bond over the central subject of music. So, and I imagine, more than anything else, that also was a promise he made to himself, not thinking about how others would react to it, but instead making a promise to himself to help change the culture of music, to aspire to do something great, something that is long overdue when it comes to the way people share their creations and the way they treat other people who are trying to share their creations, to make it mutually beneficial for everybody to listen to everybody and be honest, perhaps even brutally honest with their feedback. So that is a platform I am proud to be a part of. I am proud of its core values. I am proud of the reasoning for its existence, and I can be proud of the reason for this podcast's existence. And it's not as though I am aware of what my niche is yet. I do not know what I offer, but by any stretch of the imagination, one of the most important questions you could possibly ask yourself as a content creator is, what am I trading for the time that somebody is giving to me by listening? And for the longest time, I had no idea. No idea. Lots of people have told me that they would sit and listen to me talk, and I have no idea why. Perhaps it's generosity, perhaps they don't actually mean it. Perhaps if they were faced with the task of sitting there and listening to me talk for X amount of time, they would say, I didn't really mean it, and they would turn it off. And if that's the case, so be it. I think it's important, however, to recognize that even if nobody listens, even if nothing comes of this, even if I get 0 views, 0 listens, 0 subs from this, whatever the case, it's important. It's something that I feel if I don't try, I won't know. And if I don't try, I won't find what it is I can provide somebody when they exchange that view, that allotted amount of time with me for whatever I am providing to them. I'll never find out how to do that if I don't do this. And I may very well come to a point where, I have 5 or 6 people listening. And then they'll say, I particularly like this section. I particularly like the way you handled that. I like the fact that you showed 2 sides of this, even more than 2 sides. I like that you showed this range, this spectrum of ways to look at a particular viewpoint or issue. And sometimes, there is no spectrum. Sometimes there is only the fact of what something is, instead of this political theory where, I'm not going to be too much on the right, I'm not going to be too much on the left, I'm going to find something in the middle. That is flawed for multiple reasons. In some issues, it's not flawed, but when it comes to some things just being what they are, I want the data. I want to represent the truth if I can. And then if I'm wrong, I want to yield to the truth. I want to admit when I do not have something right. And the only way to do that is to engage. Now, it would be great to have, individual conversations, and I hope to get to that point. But I think it's very interesting that if I put it out there for multiple people, if it's a giant conversation instead of a one-on-one, which I tend to thrive at, then I get so much more feedback, I get so much more input, I get to use the wisdom from the entire life that someone's lived that I have very, very little knowledge about. And they can provide that to me in the comment section if they so wish. I don't need to have a million one-on-one conversations when I can have one conversation that extends to millions, even though that's outlandish. A million, how dare I? That's silly. 5. If there are 5 people listening to this, and this is something that I don't need to focus on so much that I lose hours to my creation. It's a spitball. It is a stream of thought. And if some people, my friends, are telling me, hey, we don't have enough conversations, but I'd still like to listen to your live stream of thought and just have it be put out there and have it be something you do and enjoy doing, that I would enjoy listening to, why not? I mean, I can think of a lot of reasons not to. The crippling anxiety of possibly being wrong on the internet when being correct, or at least being logical and reasonable, and having a certain amount of rational skepticism. It's terrifying, the concept of being wrong. It's terrifying, the concept of having people say over and over again, oh, you're so smart. And I don't say that out of ego. I don't say that. I don't say I'm so smart. Other people say that. And I find that to be something that's silly. That's silly. There's no way. There's no way I am. There's no way that I would classify myself like that. There's no way that I take people seriously when they say that. But then again, I also don't take people seriously when they'd say, hey, I'd listen to you. Just talk. And it's something I do. I think a lot of people do this where they'll hear something. They'll hear a compliment. They'll hear something nice somebody said about them. Perhaps the person's being nice for the sake of it. Perhaps they're being truthful and nice for the sake of it. But we do this, this self-deprecation. We do this self-sabotage where we don't allow ourselves to believe something that may very well be true and therefore don't take action to possibly realize that truth that somebody else sees in you but you don't see in yourself. It's a very sad thing, and I don't want to be subject to that. I don't want to allow myself to fall for these negative thought patterns that get people in these places where one day they just wake up and say, how did I get here? Why did I not do the thing that I wanted to do? Why is it that I'm having a problem recognizing my potential, or at least coming to terms with the fact that if I recognize my potential, it could be something great? So that's all. That's all. I want to thank anybody who has listened up until this point. This had no topic. I like the fact that it had no topic. I like the fact that at any point, it's just a matter of saying what is on your mind, kind of venting. I don't vent to people. I don't complain. Maybe I'll complain on here. Maybe I'll see what that's like. I've always seen it as useless. Do you complain? You see it as a bad thing? I can ask questions, too. That's strange. That's strange. But just like Jen's lens, or maybe nobody will answer. Maybe it'll just be important that I asked, that I said that I would do this, I made that promise, and then followed through and continue to do it. Have a wonderful day.
Like me? Wrong? Ha! I learn new words when he talks. I don't get encouraged that often, whether I deserve it or not, and I'm better off.